ago, a box showed up on the doorstep of my bakery. This was sent to me by a fellow miller and baker from Asheville, North Carolina. Inside this box, there were 3 bags. The first bag contained a variety called Ren's Abruzzi Rye. I opened up this bag and I saw this flour that had this deep purplish color and this totally funky, crazy, earthy, grassy aroma. The second bag contained a variety of heirloom corn called Bloody Butcher. Now the name is indicative of its color. It's this deep magenta, and whenever I breathed it in, I was overwhelmed by this buttery, creamy, rich smell. The third bag contained a variety of hard red winter wheat, just wheat flour. But this bag basically altered the trajectory of my work of the last 14 years. It was crazy to me to think that a single bag of flour, small, like this big, could do that. But whenever I would think about flour in the past, I would think of nothing, maybe dust, powdery, but in my mind, it was mostly just this innocuous substance that I considered a blank slate. This bag, however, of wheat flour, when I opened it, it was beautiful, rich yellow, and I was overwhelmed by this complex nuttiness. And as I thought about it, I realized that it smelled like something else. It smelled like peas. Okay, peas. But then I remembered that farmers use field peas as a nitrogen fixer as part of their crop rotation to build soil health. Essentially, what this was and what was happening is I was being transported to the field. I was experiencing where this grain, this flour had been planted. This was terroir. I knew this in the past through wine or cheese, but until this day, not flour. So the reason for this is that the wheat berry has 3 parts: the bran, the endosperm, and the germ. The bran is the exterior, and that's where the fiber is stored. The endosperm is the starchy interior, and the germ is the nutritional epicenter of the wheat berry. That is where all of the vitamins and minerals exist. The majority of the flour that is consumed in our modern diets is processed on a roller mill. The way this works is it goes through this big machine, and the bran and the germ is removed, leaving a starchy white powder that is basically suited for existing on our commodity markets and stable substance to sit on our kitchen, pantry shelves, and our grocery stores for indefinite amounts of time. Now, the flour in this box had been ground on a stone mill. The way this works, there's 2 giant stones. It takes the wheat berry, and it presses the entire wheat berry together, crushing it, keeping all 3 parts of the wheat intact, that grain intact, and the flavor and nutrition present in our flour. See, when you look back in history and you think about it, every community had a farm, a miller, a baker, and this helped form the fabric. It helped kind of be the center of the local food system, and what it did is it allowed this food to be consumed fresh. This is a staple, and freshness was imperative. Wheat is a seed. If you put it in the ground and you give it water, it's going to grow. It contains an inherent vitality, and as soon as you crack that seed open and you expose it to air, that vitality is diminished. Another way I like to think of this is that roller milling was designed for separation, where stone milling was designed for inclusion. This box that had been sent to me by my friend, it was the flour, the grain had been grown in Asheville, it had been then milled by my friend. He baked it for his bread and distributed it in his community. Through this simple gesture, I was able to connect the dots, and I realized that I needed to be using fresh flour like this, and I wanted to be able to do it here in Vermont. So in order to do this, I needed a mill. The way we went about it is we ultimately designed and built our own mill. Entirely long other story. But what this allows us to do is it allows me to mill 100% of my flour fresh every day. What I'm trying to do is basically, I wanted to pull a fast one on my customers. I wanted them to go to the store. I wanted them to buy the loaf of bread, put it on their cutting board, see the same loaf of bread that they'd been buying for over a decade, but it's when they taste it, when they eat it, that they were experiencing that taste of place and being given the opportunity to connect those dots like I was. The other thing that this allowed me to do, this project allowed me to do, was buy all of my grain directly from the farmer. Basically, what I wanted to do was cut out the middleman. I believe that no one works harder than the people who grow our food. No one does a more important job than that, and they need to be properly compensated for that. So I got really lucky, and one of the biggest obstacles that I found once I established that this is what I wanted to be doing was that I needed to be sourcing this grain here in Vermont. And it was difficult because Vermont and New England is no longer the breadbasket it once was. I got really lucky, though, and one day, a friend of mine handed me a piece of paper, and on that piece of paper was a phone number and the name of Nate and Jesse Rogers. And I did something completely out of my nature, and I basically cold called him, and I spent over an hour on the phone with him. And we talked about a lot of things. But the main thing we talked about was that I had a bakery and a mill, but no local grain, and he had a farm and local grain, but no bakery, and at that time, no mill. So that was over 5 years ago. And through that conversation, a relationship was formed. And since then, we have worked together to build our local businesses sustainably to show that we can focus this around grain. And by doing this, we are slowly replacing the building blocks and reforming our local grain economy. What's exciting to me is every year I see more and more farmers adding local grains into their fields and as part of their crop rotation. I'm seeing more food producers and bakers putting fresh milled, local organic grains, healthy grains into their products. And I'm seeing this also happen not just here in Vermont, but I'm seeing it happen across the country and around the world at an astonishing rate. See, I believe that by looking to the past, we're finding the future of bread. Wheat and flour is the last frontier of the local food movement, and wheat and grain has always been one of the most widely consumed foods. It always has been and always will be one of the most widely consumed foods on the planet. I'm asking and I'm working towards people to look at these foods, this staple food, with the same scrutiny that they do their other fresh foods, your meat, your dairy, your vegetables. I believe that by doing so, we will have healthier diets. Healthier diets make healthier bodies, right? Healthier bodies equal healthier minds. And right now, more than ever, we need healthier minds to build healthier communities.